drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Yes, it's Sunday sermon time. We've plenty to talk about on the eve of the Cheltenham Festival. Myself, John and Chris. And we're not really going to talk much about the Cheltenham Festival, you'll be pleased to hear. Yes! Absolutely not. Let's get this show pumping. But before we get it going, I'd just like to say apologies. We say we're not totally shit. Well, Friday's show was totally shit. An absolute bomb out of 0 from 12, which is very rare on Garcia's podcast. We make decent money every season, but for some reason, the cards were not falling for us on Saturday.
Variance. That's what it is. It's variance.
It's variance, yes.
It's a long game, boys. Yeah. As long as you live to 1,000, you'll make money. Yeah.
Well, I only had one sort of negative DM yesterday, so that was quite good. I expected more. In fact, there's been some Saturdays where we've had half-decent results, and we've been slagged from pillar to post. I can remember John tipped about this time last year. He tipped Utoxe's International winner, the Spring National, is it?
Yeah, Midlands National.
Midlands National, that's it. The Major Dundee, I think he tipped.
Mm.
And I think somebody come up week after on YouTube, after John had tipped up this 16s perk in Midlands. He says, when was the last time John tipped a winner? You people. The one thing we did get right, of course, on Friday was down to someone that wasn't on the show, Quentin Franks. He gave a bad write-up, really, for the Hannon favourite. It was very weak in the betting, should have been a ring. I thought that was worth the price of our podcast that night alone, in that he stated that should have been a ring was a very late entry. In other words, Mum's Tipple was entered and should have been a ring, was only added at the last minute with minutes to spare, as if to say, well, I'll stick it in anyway. And of course, they put it in at 5-4, drifted out to 3-1, needed the run bad, there for a float up. We called that pretty well, I thought, thanks to Quentin, that the rest of us need lashings.
Mind you, it shows what a duo the two Hannons are, doesn't it, really? Because the one that was the banker that was in first was fucking last.
Yeah, it's a yard I'm not so keen on. I'll be honest.
If you wanted a surname double that, you'd be better off with Russ and Diane Abbott, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
yeah, quite. Cooperman, Russ Abbott. Remember him, his character Cooperman?
Yeah. And Bella Emberg. And, yeah.
Coming on to that later, aren't we?
Yes.
We might touch on that.
We might stray into that territory.
We've nothing really to review on Saturday. It was just an Imperial Cup fair, apart from the fact that the bottom weight was 113 in an Imperial Cup, John. Worrying times for national hunt racing, wouldn't you agree?
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The fixture list needs cutting by 2/3, and they need to get cracking on the tapeta front.
Yep.
They need to preempt this, because this is where we're going.
Yeah, I remember when you first said this years ago, and I was like, wow, that's a bombshell. John said, I'd say about 2 years ago now, and he said, rip the July course up, put Tapita down. In fact, put Tapita down everywhere. And I was like in shock, because I didn't know this was John's view. But then, as time's gone on, you can just see the absolute logic of it, because we're sick of Clark's getting the going wrong throughout the summer and putting too much on. And the problem is when they do put plenty on, then you get a shower, you then get abandoned meetings potentially when they're slipping on the bends, or you get really bad false ground, as John's highlighted on the July course when they're clipping the top off.
You've got the so-called showpiece day of the flat season, invariably run on a quagmire, and more often than not having to switch to a fucking jumps track.
Yeah. Remember the Royal Meeting last year? We even called it chariot form, tyre track form, the Royal Procession. Because the ground was on the easy side, the imprints that they were making, and we know about tyre tracks because Redcar, the reason Redcar for ages had a bias on the far side all the time was because the emergency vehicle used to follow them up that far rail, creating the tyre marks. So, of course, like that's squeezing the moisture out the surface. It's like if you go to a pop concert and you get lots of people trampling on wet ground, it becomes sort of compacted instead of like really soft ground. It's just like mud, doesn't it?
Want to tell more at Ed Sheeran than you do at Redcar, though.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, so John came up with this years ago, and I think he's right. I think in time, I think he'll be proven right as well. I think tracks will lean to doing this because with the media rights money, and this is good money that the tracks are getting, abandoned meetings will cost them dearly. So they don't want that. So they just want to race. Again, if you have artificial surfaces, it's very rare that an artificial surface is unable to race. So I'm fully behind that. And obviously a cut on the fixture list, but we'll come to this now, John. So we're talking Cheltenham. And even though we're not massive fans of National Hunt racing, there's still a massive lack of buzz for this year. Don't you agree? Do you feel that?
Because they've all got so much to choose from now.
Mm.
They can avoid the mouth-watering clashes that we looked forward to in days of yore. Like your big novice showdowns, where you had like Banjo and Harkon in the Son of Lion. You could bet your bollocks that Banjo would have gone for the 2.5 mile if that had been an available option.
There's obviously several problems with National Hunt racing. One is the behemoth of the big Irish yards like Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, particularly Willie Mullins, who has nigh on 300 horses, and a lot of them are very expensive purchases. They have the first dibs of the pointers, they have the first dibs at the sales because the breeders and the sellers like dealing with Mullins because they get quick sales. The owners have got plenty of money and there's none of this tyre kicking and...
They even have the first dibs at the dibs, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Very difficult to overcome that. If we're talking England versus Ireland, for example, numbers, the Fez, winners at the Fez, I think it's there in itself. But I think if you want to improve the Fez and you want to improve the quality of it, Fry's a massive advocate of this. She's always said the mistake was going to 4 days. I concur with that. Some don't. Some think it's all right at 4. I think the best days we've seen of the Cheltenham Festival are 3, John. You're a subscriber to that as well?
Well, I think you could get it down to 2 at a push.
I've spat my gin out. I knew you'd say that.
2 8-race cards.
Yeah, at 10 o'clock in the morning as well, on the way to work.
Yeah, the way money works, though, that's just not going to happen. James Knight put up a thread saying, like, races you could get rid of at the Fez. I kind of like that thread. It made sense in races that you could probably just chuck away. Now, I agree with many people saying about the cross country, but that's not going to happen because Cheltenham have invested a lot of money into designing that course. That's not going to happen, even though it's a nothing race for me. Also, it's a race I'm not bothered about. That will not happen ever if there is some kind of downscale. But there are races I think you could make it better. And like you said, because there's too much choice, John. So novices, why are we racing novices over 3 miles? Why have we got 3 mile championship novice races when you should be building them up to future Gold Cups, future staying prizes? So why not make the Brown Advisory, make it 2 mile, 5.5 furlongs on the new course, and then just get rid of the turners and make that the scene for novices? There's no 3 mile chase for novices. There's no 3 mile hurdle for novices. So you've got 2 choices. It's either Supreme or Gallagher's or Ballymore, what used to be Ballymore, or it's Brown Advisory over the new
Which apart from the 2 mile 5 novice chase, you're actually going back to what it was before, wasn't it? Because you had the Arkle and the Son of Lions on the chase in front, and you had the 2 mile 5 novice hurdle and the Supreme, plus the Triumph, of course.
But the reason I've got a 2 mile 5.5, right, rather than run a 3 mile one, is because since the whip changes, we've said it, they're having to save the cracks.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's no point. That's why I get rid of the National Hunt chase. The Albert Bartlett would be gone. The Grade 2 mares hurdle you don't need. I would have 1 Grade 1 mares chase over 2.5 and 1 Grade 1 mares hurdle over 2.5. This Grade 2 mares hurdles, what's all that about?
Pointless.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean for breeders? Who cares? You want Grade 1 winners or black type. And you can get black type at any point in the season. You get black type in the spring in other meetings. I don't understand why there's a Grade 2 mile mares hurdle. It just doesn't make any sense. There's plenty to get rid of. And I think then you could knock it down to 3. You could maybe chop a handicap or 2 and just make it a brilliant 3-day festival where there's just less choice. But then would we get an overflow of, say, Mullins runners, John?
Again, I don't necessarily subscribe to the theory that that's such a bad thing. A lot of them are in different ownership.
Yeah.
It sorts the pecking order out, It's not his fault if he's got 12 of the best 20 novice hurdlers. if a fairly 20 turns up and he's got 12 in it, so be it. It's just another thing to add to the puzzle, isn't it? You'd maybe say that those 12 are trained by a super trainer and they get an extra point when you're going through the race for that. But other than that, you're still looking at the farm, aren't you?
The other thing as well, why I think change is necessary. Again, we come back to the word betting, which is a solid word as we know, and it's totally ruined anti-purse markets because of the choice. And Ballyburn is obviously the primary case in point that they're choosing to run Ballyburn in the 2.5 rather than the 2 miler. And okay, under my new rules, the 2.5 would still exist. But the point still stands. So say if you fancy something for the Ballymore, whatever, Baring Bingham, Gallagher's, whatever you want to call it, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
But then they decide to run in the Albert Bartlett. Why do you need a 3 mile novice, really? I'd extend the trip of the Gallagher's to the furthest one you can do. I'd get rid of the Albert Bartlett. I don't think you need the two. I don't think you ever have needed the two.
Yeah.
Unless you're breeding national hunt birds, which we've said on this podcast, they're finished to win at festivals because the cracks, you can't win from coming off the pace too far because naturally you can't get enough shillelagh.
You can't get enough digs into them, can you?
I don't know. The game's changing and I think we need to adapt, and I'd love to see a 3-day festival back. It probably won't happen because of greed and money, and that's just how life works. Why are Cheltenham just going to suddenly turn down another day's tickets and beer and food selling in the name of the good that it would do, I think, for the actual festival itself? There you go. I don't think we've got a solution, but yeah, I like the thread from James Knight there. Again, like Chapman said, great rant. Did you see it, John? I don't know if it was the opening show or actually on ITE Racing, but he ranted and said the BHA are fantastic at adding things to racing.
Yes.
But not removing things from racing. As in, when it needs a trim, you need your bush trimming. Everyone needs the bush trimming, don't they?
Yeah, passing my still power saw, right?
Yeah, it's not good to have a big bush.
For an eggshell finish, really.
Very 70s.
The only thing we haven't added really is value, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, there's nothing really for the punter. That's what they've not added. There's nothing there for the patrons of the sport to think, oh, that's a good idea. It's all pay, through the nose. And we're not really interested in your thoughts. We've just put on extra products for you to pay out more money. That seems to be the...
Well, yeah, they want you paying the absolute maximum when you go racing, the maximum when you have anything to eat, and they'll even let you lose £2 a day in perpetuity. And so you pass the affordability checks.
Come a bit onto that in a bit. But the thing with Cheltenham for me was the most impressive thing about Cheltenham I've ever seen. It scarred Councillor Woodman for life. He got a free invite for his MP people, lobbying people, all this lot. He'd be there for a freebie, will Councillor Woodman. And then he was shocked, horrified, when he had to pay £30 for parking, and it was a good mile walk to the course.
Oh, terrible.
Well, he's lucky he's in a position to cope with a good mile walk to the course. I'd have been staying in the... I'd have probably stayed in the car, drove it to the back of the grandstand, and just got out and fucking dumped it.
Yeah, I think I'd have rang for an ambulance and get them to drop me off on the way to hospital or something.
I do find, though, whichever race course you're on, if you have the balls to do it, if you just go and park right next to the knacker cart, they always think you're a vet.
You wouldn't have got away with it back in the day, though, because you used to buy the most garish-looking colour cars. John knew, how can I get a decent car or even a runabout? And the angle is, you just buy the worst colours, don't you?
Yeah.
A custard yellow hearse.
Yeah.
Chris, I had a custard yellow Volvo 343.
Oh, wonderful.
It was actually described as young wheat, the colour.
Young wheat, I love that.
It was custard. And the interior was custard as well.
Brilliant.
Whilst we're giving Councillor Woodman some stick, I'll give him some more stick, because this is him to a T. You can see how much 30 quid had gone through him for parking at Cheltenham, right? He loves his road running, does a lot of road running, Woody, keeping fit. And he loves this particular brand of training shoe. But the problem is they're 200 quid a pair.
Fucking hell.
And he's never paying 200 quid a pair. So he waits for the most garish colour that's not sold and then it comes down like by 50 or 60 quid. They're like the most terrible colours. Like
Martin Lewis, he sounds like people cut coupons and drive 1,000 miles to save 2p on a metric ton of sugar.
he is a yellow sticker.
Doesn't it bother him that he ends up looking like P. Diddy out for a jog?
Yeah. I know, at your age, Woody, come on.
He's in trouble, P. Diddy, isn't he? Loads of revelations about him.
I'd actually be interested to know how many of our listeners are like really thrifty, like in terms of the ones that wait.
The amount that fucking listen for nothing and don't pay, I'd say fucking 99% of them.
Well, I'll tell you what, right? Story here. So I don't usually do this, but we bought the New Year's meat late last year. So I went to M&S to try and get some meat, and it's hilarious the amount of people walking around the aisles doing laps late for yellow stickers.
The discount.
Ready to pound.
Honestly, they must have done 5 mile. Like,
You know what happens? Step watch, isn't it? 10,000 steps walking around waiting for the yellow stickers on.
yeah, it was so funny. I was laughing my head off because I've never seen it before. We were just late, just getting it. That was the only reason. We didn't want to bargain. It was just right. Oh, we're late this year. That was it. It was quite funny to see. But so, listeners, are you yellow sticker brigades? Give us some thrifty tips for races.
Yeah, send your best money saving tips.
Yeah, good old Adam Norman with his sandwiches down his socks.
Lily.
Yeah. He loves it, does Adam. We move subjects. Case actually that's been going on for the last 6 years has reared its head finally to a close, or sort of closure if you like, is the Dan Skelton George Gently horse case, where, to put it pretty bluntly, which obviously media outlets aren't really allowed to do, Skelton sort of fiddled the syndicate owners, out of money. And that came about. Skelton went to this chap and said, this horse, George Gently, will cost £130,000. And the syndicate paid it, but the syndicate was very upset to find out that Skelton had a £42,000 kickback from the actual sale. Is this right? Chris, is this acceptable? I think it's more a case of morals. And the thing is, obviously, it's not just Dan Skelton. I reckon quite a few trainers would do this to potential owners. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hidden commission, isn't it? And, you know, there are lots of legal cases, you know, PPI, Plevin, all the credit card type stuff, you know, vehicle finance and all that kind of stuff. All these legal cases, you know, mass consumer cases are all about commission that was not being disclosed to the purchaser of financial products, although in this case it was a horse. So I think it's very shaky ground, isn't it? You know, ultimately, the consumer has to understand what they're buying and who gets what. And there is an obligation to disclose when you sell a horse to say, well, look, you're going to pay X, but I'm getting a 10 grand drink out of it or a 5 grand drink. But, you know, to trouser the 42 grand is a bit naughty, isn't it?
I think that's well summed up. I think it's a case of, let's say you do the yards, you're buying on the behalf of someone else. Obviously, the bloodstock agent gets his commission, so why shouldn't you get a bit of commission? Like, as a trainer, even, if you've done some work on this and thought, right, I've got your horse, but I also want 5 grand out of this or whatever because I've put the legwork in to get you this horse. I don't see anything unreasonable with that, but £42,000 is pushing it quite a bit, isn't it?
It is, but you know, whether 42 grand is reasonable or outrageous, you know, all of the consumer cases are all about hidden commission. You can't conceal commission when you're charging somebody for a product, because they will come back and say later, well, I didn't know your role in it. I've overpaid. Had I gone direct to source, you know, I wouldn't have paid this amount of money. And all he needed to have done was saying, well, look, you don't know where I get these horses. I've got all the contacts, so my drink is X. And it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have moved forward on the basis it has now.
Dan Skelton has been fined £6,000 for this. The BHA are due to release the full inquiry on the Monday. So I don't want to say too much and castigate Dan too much. But what I would say is £6,000 seems a little light, because I think it's quite bad behaviour and a bad look for racing. It's appeared in the non-racing press, the Times. But we know racehorse trainers, this goes on. Sadly, we have to be honest here. I'm not saying all trainers do it, but I'm saying some trainers will do this to get a few quid. That's just how it is. John, you haven't got the benefit of reading the full report from the BHA, but it seems £6,000 fine seems a little low to me.
Well, I kind of get where the BHA are coming from with the nominal fine, because I tend to think this is a lot more widespread than people think, you know. I think, how many trainers could you go to and say, I want a horse. I've got £100,000 to spend. Will you get me one? And then they come back and say, well, I only spent 80. Is that all right? That's not going to happen, is it?
Now, the worst thing any new owner can do is if the trainer asks for a budget, never tell them a budget. Just say, well, you'll have to get back to me when you find one. And because if you say 100, you won't get one for 60, will you?
I'd want to know while they were bidding.
Yeah.
I'd want to be on the other end of the phone while they were bidding. Otherwise, I'd be fancying getting my pants pulled down, to be honest.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was. It happened before and two trainers got fined, didn't they? Because they were raising the hand of a horse and because they knew what that prospective owner had got to spend. But I can't remember the characters involved.
They
Maybe
did.
listeners
I can't
can put
remember.
straight on that.
But there's loads of these that don't make the reserve and then they're subject to a private deal after a sale.
No.
And I bet they get really stuffed into some owners, some of these.
Yeah, you have to be careful. I like I said, Dan Skelton, he's sort of level in the game. He's quite high. He's quite a high-profile trainer. I don't expect this of particularly high-profile trainers. I'd expect that of a more desperate trainer down the bottom end that probably needed the cash.
You can never have enough money, though, can you? That's the thing. That's human nature. So it doesn't surprise me, but I agree. It's a terrible look.
It's just it's a difficult kill, isn't it? But it's not.
No, it's not a good look.
It's an easy sum of money, isn't it? What is it? It's a phone call.
Yeah. And of course, Mr. Skelton, in his defence, through his barrister, etc., said that he'd not slept a wink for the last 6 years. That so much stress was poured on him through this case. Dan, what I would say is usually people that suffer stress usually lose a lot of weight. What's going off?
Well, it's comfort eating, isn't it? Stressed out, get up for a pie in the middle of the night.
But that's it, yeah. Mr. Kipling's come out
at 3 a.m.
when you're under pressure. Yeah,
French
fancies, all that lot. Yeah. Indeed. Right, we move
That's
on.
what I do when I'm stressed. I get up and make pancakes.
That's like the producer. One thing the producer loves, key to her art, is like either cake or pancakes. And pancakes, she even said, why do we have pancake day only once a year? It should be like a weekly thing. So I don't know if you agree with that, but there we go. That's the producer.
Yes, ma'am.
Gambling charities.
We should set one up, for
What?
sure.
Oh, no.
We should be the Quango of something like gambling education. How to educate people on gambling. Maybe we'll get some funding. This is the fake numbers game, where what happens is certain charities make certain assertions regarding gambling numbers. Apparently, according to certain gambling charities, 1.4 million now have a gambling problem.
Very good.
The one thing I find interesting, always the 400 plus suicides a year due to gambling, I find interesting is why, after 5 years, if there were 400 plus cases, you'd think there would be so much ammo for these charities to go to war with in terms of publicity. Why are they relying on the odd case and still wheeling Annie Ashton out 5 years later? If there was 400 plus suicides a year, you would think there'd be at least 20 cases out of those 400 per year where you could just go to town on, where people would be happy for the publicity to highlight this. Obviously, some families wouldn't want suicide highlighting. I get that. So I'm not naive enough to say, oh, well, you're going to get reports on 400 plus suicides. But have they not got the ammo to back that up? They're wheeling out the same people they were 5 years ago.
It's almost as if they're making it up for money, isn't it?
Hammer and nail there from Chris. 1.4 million have a gambling.
I do. I don't back enough fucking winners. That's my problem. Who's going to help me? Where's my money?
And it's funny, of course, because still to this day, it's a really broad word, this. Gambling harm. People that have suffered gambling harm. What does that exactly mean? No one can tell, mate. No one's got a barometer for that, except...
Very subjective, isn't it? Very subjective.
Gambling harm can only be one's opinion. I.e., you've suffered gambling harm. Who says? I say. Right, so I'll give an example, Chris. Let's say you think, right, might take the missus out for a meal tonight.
Fucking hell, that's stupid. What are you on about?
Yeah, listen, you take her out. Yeah, the bill will be like roughly 150 quid.
We'll be wearing Woody's tennis shoes if I had a bill for 150 quid. Sprint down the fucking restaurant. I tell you, put your running spikes on, love. We're off. I'll be like Ed Moses jumping over those tables.
You're going to Five Guys again.
Five Guys, greasy burgers. Then let's say you got 150, but then there's a good gamble and you think, I want to be on this gamble. And you think, right, if I have the 150 on, then we're cooking. We can have the night out and I've got
Yes.
cash besides as well. Fantastic. Then if it loses, we stay in and watch The Masked Singer.
Oh, please God, not that.
Yeah.
It's win-win, isn't it, really?
It is. You've had a right touch, yeah.
That's only a life choice.
No.
It's not harm. They would
Yes.
class that as harm because you're not going on the meal. When in fact, both are leisure
Yeah.
activity. Just because you've managed to blow it on a gamble gone wrong.
Yeah, and the Masked Singer, you're getting a bit of mental stimulation trying to
Right.
work out who's
Yeah,
wearing the mask.
fascinating.
There you go. Gambling harm is such a
Yeah.
broad word that I think it's unfair of them to use numbers like this because harm to one is
No.
not necessarily harm to another. It's basically just
Yeah.
a life choice. Like you say, people choose to bet
Yes.
at Cheltenham next week, right? And they've probably
Yeah.
got banks and budgets for that. £300 or £400 to bet at Cheltenham for the week. Let's say you do it in, and then someone posts, well, that's it, can't go out this weekend. They
Yeah.
class that as harm because they've lost all the money at Cheltenham, when in fact,
So what's the difference? I've just come back from a week in Spain. I'm wiped out. It'd be bread and jam for the rest of the month. That's you generated,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
your holiday, Cheltenham. The fact you haven't left the country is irrelevant. That's why it's nothing to do with managing or diminishing, the social consequences of harmful gambling. It's ideology, and they reverse engineer it from the position, from their ideological position. So they'll make data and the narrative fit the desired outcome. So if you go from a position all gambling is bad, let's find stories from people where they have attributed gambling to their woes in life, and you build those up and say, there you go, there's your evidence.
it is. It's a rule again by fake numbers. This is the problem, that they're already starting to do this. This is even before like legislation's been brought in. And I'll tell you how dangerous it is. So these figures that have been quoted around, which even the Gambling Commission have come out and said these are inaccurate. These aren't figures that we back up. The Minister of State quoted the 2.5% figure. That's how many have supposedly got problem gambling, 2.5%. Quoted it in the speech, the Gambling with Lives reception. So ministers are starting to accept these numbers that are just banded about. It's like, what are you doing?
Said ad nauseum before, racing and the gambling industry didn't move quickly enough to challenge this narrative. And now it's become fact, hasn't it? 2.5% of gamblers have a real problem because, they didn't move quickly enough. And that's the issue. They're asleep at the wheel, and this is, they will reap the consequences.
Absolutely, the sport's done. They'll find this out, and if you sat here listening to this saying, "Oh, he's doom and gloom," no, it's done. It's done. It's finished. You won't be able to operate properly, and it's an ecosystem. Racing is an ecosystem where everyone chucks in as a slice of the pie back, and once trainers start going to the wall because they can't get owners, it has a knock-on effect. It isn't just about being able to get a bet on. There's lots of other implications that will be caused by affordability. Owners are tweeting regular about this is their last horse, or that's it, they're done. You see this on a daily basis now. So it will happen. The decline will happen, and you'll see it. But then the problem is with most people in life is they only react after the event. They don't foresee the event and try and prevent that event. They react after the event. So, what's happening? What's happening? This is no good. Well, we told you that this is the problem. I'm afraid if they see to these gambling charities, or I'd love an investigation into these gambling charities, by the way. I would absolutely love it, because Keegan with the earphones, because I believe that the money that they're getting, I don't believe they're using it. In fact, there's no accountability. There's no auditing.
Maybe Peter Shilton will look into it.
Yes.
For us.
Oh, maybe he will. Yeah. He loves
Him and his old woman will go on telly again, won't they?
Yeah, he loves a grift as well, Pete. LC fans.
No wingspan.
It's a big problem for us. I don't know what we do. We keep pushing our narrative, but at the same time, I just think it's a golden handshake Freemasonry deal behind the scenes.
I had a couple of attempts at the letter that's on our site to send to the P.
Yeah.
I got so far with it every time, but it's Simon Clark, and I just ended up writing cunt all over it.
Be strong. You can do it.
Yeah. But it's interesting on Twitter spat. Jeff Banks is obviously tweeting a lot on this, and Dr. James Noyes made a statement on Twitter. He's the one that sort of instigated affordability checks, the idea of it and the principles behind it.
It's actually called Noise.
Noyes, Noyes, James
Oh,
Noyes.
right. Not
No,
As in Kenneth Noy.
not as in the
Yeah.
art of.
An interesting tweet from him. He actually said that if the checks couldn't be frictionless, then there shouldn't be any checks. Now, we already know that it's impossible for the checks not to be frictionless. It's impossible. That's a soundbite the MPs have used on affordability. And this is the thing that annoys me, that it's a word that should be banned because they can't be frictionless. If they want to check your bank account, it either has to be done through open banking, which you have to give permission to, which you do if you wanted a mortgage or something like that, or they're going to have to ask for personal information that you have to send, which they're currently doing. So how is it frictionless? It's bollocks. It's a watchword. Terrible word. So we'll conclude with that topic. It's a frustrating time for us in racing. It's like the band on the Titanic. We'll keep playing until good old Rose kicks Jack off the floating iceberg and
They were a lot gamer than me. I'd have fucked off well before then. I'd have chucked one of the women and children overboard and pitched into a lifeboat.
What do we think about Rose and Jack in that? I mean, Rose were all right.
Horrible.
She really like
horrible. Some fucking horrible, desiccated old bag reminiscent about some fucking stowaway she sucked off on a boat 80 years ago. While she's got a husband, kids who look at fucking old cunt. Can't stand her. I can't understand it was a romantic story. Ooh, I'm dreaming about some bloke I sucked off 80 years ago. Really? Fucking get in the sea. I would. I like the geese that dressed up as a woman and got in the old lifeboat. The fellow that I liked him. Fucking get the old elbowing them all out the way. Go on, fucking. Yeah, I'll be.
You'd be like the Emily Howard on Little Britain, wouldn't you?
Not as convinced.
I'm a lady.
My kids have got this app where you can turn yourself into a woman. You know, like a picture, and it shows you what you look like as a woman. Fucking hell, honestly.
I don't.
No,
I'm not doing that.
Though it's really good, but yeah, I wouldn't put it that way. But yes, it's a horrible film. That is boring.
No, I'm not doing. I dare look. I have enough scars in my life that
the trauma scene that is quite
quite
sobering. That's for sure.
Getting through some of your questions now, of course, because this is what we like to do. Some really good stuff. Stephen Thomas, what has happened to John Joe O'Neill, Hobbs, and Pipe over the last 3 or 4 years? They all used to be good for a winner or two at the fairs, but have been woeful recently. And he doesn't think lack of spending power isn't to blame. He makes a fair case, I suppose. But McManus sends John Joe some decent stuff. Pipe's had some expensive purchases off that French woman. What do you call her? And Brian Drew.
Yeah, Brian Drew and it's Professor Caroline Tisdale, is it?
That's the one. Good stuff, Chris. Yeah. Decent supporting owners there. What's gone wrong, John?
I just think they're not very good training racehorses. Perfectly frank.
It's since Daddy Pipe shut down his laboratory.
Yeah, fucking Dr. Frankenstein, yeah. Live, my beauty, live. Yeah.
The trouble was, Daddy Pipe left what was left of his notebook on the desk for David, but it just said remove 4 pints.
Yeah.
The bit that was missing didn't say put 8 back.
Yeah, I think it kind of links to what you said earlier. I just think, they have got big spending owners, but not the big spending owners that the likes of Mullins and Elliott have. And I just think they're playing catch up. And in any event, why would you want a horse trained in England, really? If you're super rich and you love national hunt racing and you want to win races at Cheltenham Festival, you want them trained in Ireland, don't you, really?
Despite, obviously, our previous jibes on the show about Irish carrots, which can be very potent at the best
they're lovely.
Yeah. Willie Mullins, you have to doff your cap to, because it doesn't matter whether you've got carrots or not. But the man is a genius. And if the genius is getting the best horses and all the owners want horses trained by Mullins, then how are you going to stop that? You can't. So moving on from that question to the racing blogger. And we've had several comments on the blogger video that came out in the last week or so. If you have not seen it, it's up to you. If you really despise the man or you can't be doing with him, then I'd advise no. If you sort of don't mind him and you're 50-50, I'd say do. Because I watched it and I didn't half mind it. It's professionally done, but the same thing is, what I sense from blogger, I think he's bitter, given his light amount of following, and he thinks he's doing great for racing and improving racing's followers. I sense he's really bitter that he's not actually landed a major media role. He often goes to say, like, oh, well, what are they doing? I've got 10 times their reach on social media.
Yeah.
He's that kind
but
of...
it's the quality of his reach, though, isn't it, really? I mean,
Yes.
he sort of turned the sport into flypaper for cunts.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I have to remember. Fly paper for cunts. You heard it here. That has to be the tagline for this week's show, doesn't it? Fly paper for cunts. I love that. If I could afford a hat, John, I'd doff it to you for that one. I love that.
There we go.
Yeah, John comes out with some good ones. I think one of John's previous lines that Racing Without podcasting rap, sort of like happier than a wanking Jap.
I like that's Viz, isn't it? You can imagine the old eyes all kind of sort of closed, teeth sticking out, hunched over, hammering away. Yeah, it's brilliant that.
Yeah, he's cut with some great ones over time. It's a good one. Blogger, Chris, what's your take on?
I saw some of it. I mean, I think what kind of he's bitter. You're right, because when he first started, his aim was to secure a job with ITV Racing, or at least a satellite channel as a presenter, which hasn't happened. Although he's got a huge following, he's a very divisive character. I just thought that video was really weird. It's like a vanity project for somebody that hasn't really achieved an enormous amount, in the sort of the last few years, other than generating a lot of publicity. And it's like, it reminds me of the sort of bloke that will commission a painter to paint a 12-foot portrait of him dressed as Napoleon astride a white charger to hang it above his fireplace. It's a kind of a very narcissistic thing to do, is to make a video about yourself. I mean, I don't know, maybe the world's moved on, but I just think it's kind of odd, isn't it?
Funny you mention the word narcissist, because that's how I actually see him. I think he is a narcissist. There's a lot of things he does that come across like that.
Yeah.
But there are some fun things.
Kind of look at me, isn't it? There is a whiff of desperation for attention. Now, obviously, he would deny that, and people say, "Oh, you're a jealous old bastard," which is probably true, because he does seem to be having fun. But he just grinds my gears a bit, and it's all a bit too urgent. It's a bit too kind of desperate for everybody to look at him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a show and a put on. I mean, there are some great funny moments. I mean, one's made it to our soundtrack. Charities. Where's the post? Where's the post? There are some genuinely funny moments where everyone laughs at his expense. Some of the quality of his content's quite good. When he actually goes round to see trainers, I actually think it is okay. But then some of it, it's just...
I just find it cringy. I mean, that's me. That's a subjective comment. Other people think it is great, but I just kind of wince. I kind of almost hide behind a cushion when you hear some of the stuff, and it's all, I don't know. It's all a bit kind of Tanya Stevenson in the bedding in 11 to 4, all that old crap. You think, "I'll turn it up, mate." No one's interested in that gore blimey kind of act. It doesn't sit well with me. But look, he seems to be enjoying his life. He seems to be having a good time. So fair play to him. I mean,
on the face of it, making plenty of money, and so
yeah,
fair play to him. So I don't want to come across as people who are just jealous, slagging him off, and this. I just take people as I find them. I'm not really bothered how they're doing. If they're making money, great, fantastic.
Good on him. And the thing is, listen, the fact that we are again talking about him. He succeeded, isn't he? He's everywhere. Now, the fact he hasn't landed the job he wants is neither here nor there. That job might be around the corner for him. Who knows? But we're talking about him. There you go.
Exactly. And as you've pointed out many a time, Chris,
no such thing as bad publicity. If people are talking about you, even negatively, you've hit their radar. And that's all marketing's about. And so you can see why some bookmakers may or may not want an association with him, because people say, "Oh, he's irresponsible gambling." They don't give a shit. All they want is people to know about their brand. That's it.
He's not a kick in the arse away from Curry's opening up, especially for him, for 20 minutes one night.
No, exactly. Exactly right.
But again, with publicity, John, it's like, unless you're clubbing seals or burning down orphanage, it's not bad publicity, is it?
No.
He has enough support. There are enough people out there, because we exist in an echo chamber of ourselves. So a lot of the followers and listeners say, "Yeah, we don't like Blogger," but there are an equal number or even greater number of people who think he's fantastic.
Absolutely.
And they're not all fools. They're not all kind of, skin fade, haircut yobbos. There are people who think he's good for the sport. Now, I think they're wrong, but they might be right.
Well, he's definitely got more fans than us. The only difference being...
Well, that would be difficult, wouldn't it? That would be hard.
That's my advice. if you sort of dislike Blogger, then don't watch it. If you sort of half like him, I'd advise you to watch it. I don't think it's that bad. Councillor Woodman enjoyed it.
No, he
So
will want anything. Someone give him 30 quid to watch it, so he'll be loving that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it meant he can park his car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get free car parking, suckers. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
we're getting some stick this year. So just coming on to a racing question before we go on to the funnies. X15 Raptor, I thought this were an interesting question for you, John. Justify covered 410 mares in 2023.
Sweet fucking Jesus.
In the US, 222 would be the 9th biggest book. In Australia, 188 would be the 7th biggest book. 410 mares, John. I mean, it's like Buster Gonads, isn't it?
I hope he's got 2 lads leading him because he's going to be boss head, isn't he? He'll be banging into walls and stuff. Jesus Christ.
410's like Ron Jeremy class, isn't it?
Walk like Charlie Chaplin.
I mean, that's serious, isn't it?
365 days a year.
That's a lot, isn't it?
You go back to the late 70s, a full book was 40.
Yeah. Is that John Magnier saying, earn your corn, son, earn your corn?
Well, you're printing money, aren't they? You know, I mean, how much your cover is he?
He'd be, well, I don't know what it is. I think it's private, but I would imagine he's probably 250 a go, I would say.
There you go, 400 of them.
Have some of that.
You have to pay for your own wheelbarrow to take it home.
Yeah. Be some freebies in that, though, to mates, won't they? And
I dare say King Charles, whatever it'll be, send a couple of brown mares over to breed a couple of nutters.
Yeah. We'll come on to some funnies now to get the show finished off in the right way. We're coming on to a few great questions. So, John, we've already done the sweets topic. I mean, you said sweets no longer on sale, and you said Chewits.
Yeah.
That's a good shout. Chewits were superb.
Are they no longer on sale?
I've never seen Chewits.
This is like could be a bit Mandela effect here because I'm sure that they're still around.
The producer's frowning at this point. I'm sure the producer used to have Chewits as well. I would say Toffos.
Toffos, nap. And the fruit Toffos.
Yeah.
Remember them? The ones that like tasted like strawberry and like kind of stuff, and banana. Amazing.
I tell you what, they should start selling again in these days when we're all looking for a dentist. Texan bars.
Oh, the old
anybody trying to extract their own teeth, all you need to do is bite down hard on a Texan bar, then open your gob quick.
The nougat caramel in Texan bars was tremendous. Very tasty as well. Probably broke every sugar law on the planet, which is why they've had to take them out. If I reckon the reason they take most of the chocolate bars out today is because of these new sugar taxes and laws. And having been a frequent visitor to the States, having their chocolate, you're bouncing off of walls.
No, sugar tax on the Texan bar, you'd be paying 78 quid for one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. It's all sugar,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
Great questions this week also from Samuel the Cat. Gamblers are notoriously emotional wrecks who fall to pieces if something goes slightly wrong. So my query is, what is the perfect morning preparation for a long day's punting to get you in the perfect mindset? Do you have any rituals or eating habits to get you in the zone? John, what's an ideal day for you?
Rise early, obviously. A quick Tommy Tank over Laura Tobin on the GMTV weather.
Oh, that's horrible, that. I bet you stand right in front of the telly and all that, and she just think it's going in her mouth.
I never leave the bed, Chris.
All right, okay, cool. Just want to put some clarity there.
Quick shower, vest and pants on, downstairs, scrambled egg, smoked salmon, a perusal of the day's selections, spend an hour on my latest hobby, which is producing porn for the visually impaired, just to relax a bit. Another quick Tommy Tank.
Jesus.
Best bib and tucker on, and then out the door off to the races. Dead easy.
There's not much we could say. You lost us at Laura Tobin. We're like,
for me, I would say perfect preparation is sleep. If you're not sleeping well,
24 hours, so you don't have to go to races.
As you get older, this is really true. And I've found this later in life as my energy starts to wane. If you don't sleep well the night before, I'm not saying you're a million, but it makes it really hard because
Because you
Like
need a nap for mid-afternoon.
Oh, I mean, this
Yeah.
is the thing. What I'm 51 now. Getting to a thing where if you're sleeping well, you really do well throughout the day. If you don't, I hit a massive flat spot midway through the day, which is not ideal. You don't want flat spots then. And then I have to either have a
When you
nap
could do with
or
a Texan bar, really, isn't it?
yeah, it's
You
7
could.
million pounds of sugar.
Yeah, it'll be a roller coaster. You're up high as a kite, then you
Yeah.
crash, then you go back up again. It's brilliant. It's like Thorpe Park.
The producer sometimes he'll do me a Bailey's coffee sort of mid afternoon if I'm struggling,
Yeah.
and that's more prevalent with age. Nothing more. Going like by the playbook. I mean, Patrick Veach, if you've not watched it on Star Sports, not a plug for them really, but it's a good watch. And he says
Brilliant,
about fitness and he's right. To be honest, he is right because if you're not fit,
Yeah.
and I'm not, you do feel slovenly, and slovenly is not good because obviously you're trying to processing thoughts. You're looking at form videos, you're trying to look at stuff and make the right decision. And if you're not sharp, somebody else will be sharper. And that's the game.
And you have more energy. I'm like you, Lee. I'm really bad. I like to snarf down a lot of mini Battenbergs, feel all right for about half an hour, and then you have like a massive sugar crash where you want to go to bed. And that's just no way to, to excel in any industry, is it? So I think there's a lot to be said for it. But could you handle all that salad though, and all that healthy eating and exercise? Not so
The
sure.
answer is no.
No,
And
no.
obviously, I drink too much. I admit that. It's a case of sometimes, and I'll say this, the last few years have been bloody fucking hard work mentally in terms
Yeah,
of what we've
yeah.
had to put up
You've
with.
got to have something to fucking make life worthwhile, haven't you? So,
Yeah, we've had lockdowns, we've had antis attacking our sport. Potentially in 2 years, I'll not be able to play anymore. Fuck it.
live fast, die young. Yeah.
Who cares? If that's how they're going to play the game, then
That's why people do self-medicate, don't they? It's kind of like when you get these people, you get young women and young men begging on the streets, and people say, "Oh, don't give them any money; they only spend it on drugs." Well, I think if I was on the street, I'd fucking be out my nut, wouldn't you? That's all I'd spend the money on would be drugs, because people self-medicate against the horror of
I
modern
agree.
life, really. So I don't criticise anybody like that at all.
If it numbs the pain of their situation, then
Yeah.
why not? Who are we to judge that that's immoral?
Exactly. People say that you should go and buy them a sandwich. Yeah, if they want a sandwich, but if they want some money, spend it on what they like. Not my business. If I, there should be no kind of conditions attached to giving someone charity. I really don't believe that. So
Well,
yeah,
if somebody's fancying a pipe, what's the point foisting a McChicken flurry on them or whatever they call them?
chicken
Yeah.
and flurry. What's that? Ooh. Rejected McDonald's menus. Chicken flurry. Yeah. No, the McFlurry's the ice cream, isn't it?
What they're doing
The McFlurry.
Can't stand them.
Yeah.
Yeah, John doesn't do McDonald's. No,
Do you not?
no.
I like McDonald's. I do like
Yeah,
McDonald's, unfortunately.
I'm not a massive fan.
Burger King's better, I think. I
KFC,
prefer Burger
the
King.
South End one.
I know you do, yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
Well, the Carlisle one's good, isn't it, as well?
Oh, the Carlisle one, yeah, that good chicken
Yeah.
there. Of course,
Yeah.
everyone thinks that KFC chicken's the same everywhere because it's not, because
No.
it's franchise.
Fools
Franchise.
they
Remember that. You
Yeah.
get your chicken from there, and there's
Yeah.
better ones. Trust me on this. I'm a KFC.
That Carlisle one, they're all out the back scratching in the dirt for worms.
Chris, is it shut now? I think it's shut, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it is. Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of seaside towns, it's sort of going into slow decline now, Southend. During winter, there are a few bleaker places in an English seaside town. If you want to taste despair, go to a seaside town in this country in November.
And Jamie Oliver did a couple of specials from there as well, didn't he? I mean, that one
He did.
won't done the place any good.
Won't have done it. And all the people at that kind of the end of the pier, literally that restaurant, they're all kind of bussed in. No one's like that in Southend. They're all kind of hipsters, man buns and waxed moustaches. If you want a genuine Southend resident, try a homeless bloke with no trousers on shouting at pigeons. That's
Exactly. Oliver filled his place with pound shop Donald Sindens, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. All these kind of sort of out of work actors sort of mugging for their next kind of gig. But that was totally confected, that Jamie Oliver programme. Absolute rubbish.
Right, I'm going to finish with Pontifex Maximus, Lorne Malvo's question.
Yes.
Your very self, Chris. Just to carry on the misogyny on this shirt, name a woman in the public eye
Christ.
who you find sexually attractive but are fearful of disclosing because of potential ridicule. This is a great thread. Chris Pull came on the thread and said B, from Prisoner Cell Block H, and I thought John was more of a Lizzie fan on that show. What a show that was.
As I pointed out on Twitter, I think it'd be like a welly top.
Yeah. A melted one as well, or melted Wellington.
It's a great thread, this, on Twitter. It's quite funny.
Yeah. Apple clean rating under
Chris
pressure.
nominated Haley from Coronation Street. Chris Pull brought Mrs. McCluskey, R.I.P. from Grange Hill.
I think Haley from Coronation Street's technically incorrect, isn't it?
Oh, it could be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or was he, she, post-op?
Well,
you wouldn't really want to find out, would you?
Not really. Fry says, can I pose the same question to our female followers? What male, etc.? Jimmy Fallon for Fry.
Well,
no, that's degrading. Fry should be ashamed of herself. That's demeaning to men, Disgusting.
Yeah. I commented, I thought Sam Smith.
What, the fella?
Yeah, with a big hairy chest out of the dress. What's not to like? He's in Dockers with a big hairy chest out. Nothing wrong with that. Fruit bats all over the place.
I've received an inordinate amount of stick for having a bit of a thing for Liz Truss.
Yeah.
You have?
Which, I don't really understand why. I think she's tremendously attractive.
Yeah.
Each to his own, isn't it?
Penny Mordaunt and her sword.
No, I just got a few quid I could tap her up for. That's all, honestly.
Well, I know,
that's Tamsin Greig, who plays the mother in Friday Night Dinner. I think is very attractive.
No, I'm not convinced by your argument there. I think you're a massive Penny Mordaunt fan, because if it were a few quid, you could easily say Kirsten Rousey.
Oh yeah,
and have the Tetra Pak.
That'd be like going down on Hetty Wainsrop. I think what an image.
I mean, Jonas would be straight in there as chief advisor.
I don't think so.
Advisor,
Jack on our very panel says Jane Chapel-Iron.
Huh?
There's nothing they wouldn't do with Jane Chapel-Iron.
Absolutely, he adores her. So some good ones.
Clue to the first to follow for your own.
There's one other one I wanted to mention. Good old, she's dead now.
Who? Good old, she's dead now. Okay.
Jacqueline Pierce, Blake 7, Serverland. Do you remember it? Some dominatrix there.
Yeah, I do. Gosh, that's a blast in the past. Yeah. Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. Good call.
We've had some fun again, and I thank you for some great questions, because you really do make the show, and me, John, and Chris enjoy them all. It does make the show flow. So we kick on to the Cheltenham Festival preview, which will be available at 7 a.m. in the morning to Patreon subscribers, which will contain Declan Carroll, Catherine Fry, Andy Richmond, me and John, with our fancies of the week. So don't miss that. It's available at 5 p.m. for non-subscribers, so you don't miss out, other than the prices if we come up with anything extra special. But that's the way it is. We need a book or two. Penny for the guy kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed this show. Me, John, and Chris will be back same time next week. Don't forget to check out Patreon if you haven't subscribed, because me and John are going to be doing a Midweek Madness on Wednesday to look at the Cheltenham Festival highlights and lures and maybe extra fancies. So don't miss out on that on Wednesday. That's all from us. Bye for now.